Hey, good people, welcome back to my episode number one. Yes, episode number one of Chronicles. I was thinking a bit because I think the other one was a trailer episode. So, yeah, the first episode of Chronicles. And this episode, I chose to name it There Is Nothing Wrong with You. And I want to talk about self acceptance and being your own fan, being your own number one fan. I chose to start with this one because for some time there, I really suffered with it. And unfortunately, the world continues where you're suffering internally. The best thing you can do, I tell you, is accept yourself and love yourself for who you are. And I think the one that really rolled it out for me was when my mom preached about self-esteem at church. It was a very random topic. She just taught, and then she talked about self-esteem and accepting yourself, and it got the ball rolling for me. But when you're in that deep place of self-hatred and self-critiquing, you never really pick it up. You never know there's a problem with you. And I'm telling you, the minute I resolved self-love and self-acceptance, it has really opened up a lot of things in my life. So beyond that, God is good. I have a friend of mine who does life coaching. I will even just put her number somewhere so that you can get in touch with her in case you have some questions. So one day we're just talking, and then I tell her about how I'm battling a lot of fear and anxiety. Note, I am a Christian. Note, I love the Lord. Note, I am filled with the Holy Spirit. But here I am suffering with a lot of fear and anxiety. So as we are talking, she just casually mentions how there's a problem with how I'm thinking. Then it proceeds. I'll call it a session, but during our conversation, she starts talking about my thoughts and how I'm thinking and how I am interpreting things and how I am viewing the world in a very skewed way. So I will not even talk about the details of what we went through and what we talked about. But my whole idea of this episode is to talk about how you need to accept yourself. And how do you accept yourself? You accept yourself first with the thoughts that run in your mind. There's a book that begins by saying that thoughts are things. Thoughts are tangible things, and thoughts can be very destructive. The things that run in your mind, if you don't rule your mind, then you end up being a very let go person. Everything just runs you. So what did she tell me to start doing? First of all, to take control of the thoughts in my mind. And at first it was really difficult because you see, I had years and years of self-critiquing. In fact, I feel so bad that for so many years and it's like working with an enemy in your mind. This is how I'd compare it to. It's like every time you're walking, there's someone with a speaker behind you saying, "You're so ugly. Your skin is not good. Your hair is so bad." Just an example, you're so stupid. It's a very bad thing. So a lot of people actually go through it. A lot of people go through it, and it comes and it stems from the experiences we have in life. So for instance, if you are going into a matatu and then you trip and fall, you pick that incident and tell yourself, I'm not careful when I'm walking. I forget the word, but I'm not careful when I walk. And then it starts guiding who you are. Then every place that you do something and stumble, you tell yourself, I'm not careful with the way I walk. I'm not careful with the way I walk. And it's unfortunately such a small example, but it's an idea of how people walk through life over and over again. So, what am I saying? Self acceptance begins from how you control the thoughts in your mind. Because I can assure you, there is nothing wrong with you. You are a normal person. You are a normal girl. You are a normal boy. You are a normal man. You are a normal woman. The things you're going through are normal. Nothing is abnormal about you. If anything, you are better because the only problem is that you've been walking around with negativity in your mind. So I'm going to teach you how I did mine, how I started self-accepting myself. I currently live around family, and my mom makes comments about things when I'm walking around, and she'll say, nowadays you're beautiful. Okay, she says it that since I moved back home. So she says, nowadays you're beautiful. Where previously I would say something like, eh, now I say, I know, mom, but it has come from now. I just sit back. I take time. I sit back. I tell myself. I intentionally speak to myself. On areas where I feel weak, I intentionally speak to myself. And the bottom line to remember is that there is no problem with you. So there is no problem with me. What do? I intentionally speak to myself. I tell myself, Carol, you are beautiful. Carol, you, in fact, I'll pass by a mirror. Nowadays I look funny. I pass by a mirror and I say, Carol, you look stunning today. Carol, you are very brilliant. Carol, so I'm changing the voice in my mind to now be positive. How has this affected me? There was a day I was having a pretty rough day at work, and as I was walking by the mirror, I was very flustered. And as I was walking by the mirror, because now the poor self talk started coming back. As I was walking through by the mirror, I told myself, why am I feeling flustered? I'm looking lovely, for one. Point number one. Point number two, I'm doing the best I can. Why am I flustered? Things will go the way they will go. God is with me. And I know the funny part is that when people would talk about self talk and positive self talk, previously I'd view them and say, they're just saying these things are not practical, but I dare you to try. I dare you to try. And affirmations have always been talked about as a way for you to change your self-talk. But affirmations are not worthy if they don't speak to what it is you are suffering with, or what it is that you feel in your mind, that you have gone years and years abusing yourself. Self-abuse, it's not right. There is nothing wrong with you. I can tell you, you can wipe away I'm tempted to say this. I was listening to Lydia KM, and she said trauma is like walking around with specks that are dirty. I paraphrase, I forget the exact thing she said. And it's the same way. If you can be blinded by the things that you have always thought through, you've always thought about yourself, so you need to clean the specs. And have you ever seen someone who's gone to an optician and being given the correct prescription of specs? They come out, they're like, wow, so you need to be that person. For you need to be champion number one. And you know how you look at people who are self-confident and say, I love that can be you, but it begins from a point of self-love. You have to love the things that are about you. There's only one you that God created, and that you has to achieve the purpose that God has put for you. So you have to live you have to live your life authentically. And the only way to remove that burden that you walk around with is to love yourself. I love my 30s. I completely love my 30s because it's like a burden was removed off my shoulders. Now I walk around knowing I am my number one fan. If today someone were to maybe abuse me, I want to use a bad example, but if someone were to abuse me now and when I was in my 20s, those were two different reactions because my 20s was burdened with a lot of self-hatred. So if someone would abuse me, I would react very violently when I was in my 20s. Now, if you maybe were to hurl the same insults, I'd be like, imagine maybe, okay, I'm not saying I'm a positive, all round happy person, but I'm saying that in the same way, I just say, probably they're having a bad day. Imagine that's not me. There's nothing you're saying about me that is me. Or rather, whatever you're saying has nothing to do with me. So, my whole idea is that choose self-acceptance today, choose love, go into Google, make a research. How can I start self-loving myself? How can I self-accept? Pick a couple of those things that are easy to reach for you, and I promise you this journey will be worth it, because at that point is where you will be able to focus on that which God called you. Because when the voice in your mind is strong about you and what God has called you, then everything is clear on the path. It doesn't matter what people say, it doesn't matter what people comment. It becomes the best thing that you can do. So to avoid repeating myself, I'll go to my point number 2. But self-acceptance will lead you to, at that point is where your victory will begin. It's the same place where your healing will begin. It's the same place where your self-love will begin. So you need to take that journey for you. And it doesn't matter where you have been. It doesn't matter what has happened to you. I am saying this with being very cautious that some people have gone through a very tough journey. I've gone through very traumatic things. But I can promise you, you need to pick yourself up. You need to be your number one supporter, because at that point is where you'll even get the strength to deal with those things. Because imagine you are the person who has to go through life. And you have to be your number one supporter. I think another thing I can put in support of self-acceptance is regrets. Another thing that you have to be very clear on is easily forgive yourself for things that you feel are a mistake. If you did something that you feel was wrong, walking and thinking about it and focusing on it and making it your number one priority and how you need to be sorry about it does not help a thing. Regrets never help anything. The only thing you can correct is going forward in the right way. You need to forgive yourself. And how I did this for me is I verbally and in a very strong way said it out. I said, I forgive myself for the things that I've done in the past that I feel were wrong. So you have to continually tell yourself that you forgive yourself. And self-forgiveness is a little bit easier than self-acceptance, because especially at the place of, I'm speaking as a Christian, it's easy to forgive. Okay, it's harder to forgive yourself than other people. But the minute you speak out and say, I forgive, it's much easier. Forgiveness is much easier taken out when you speak it out. So speak it out. Say, I forgive myself for this and this that I did. I forgive myself for this and this that I did. I'm tempted to give examples, but I will not. So forgive yourself. Verbally say it out. And there's a pound that you lose from the weight in your heart. I promise you. So self-acceptance, self-forgiveness. And then along with that, 2 more points is self-judgment. Self-judgment is brought by that voice in your head. And that voice in your head, once you start to self-accept, first of all, it tones down. It stops speaking so loudly. That means you get out of your head and actually live life authentically. So if you take care of point number 1, where you self-accept, then the self-judgment tones down and you become a freer person. So I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to stop right there. But I'm going to urge us to fall in love with ourselves. Whatever that means for you, whatever it takes for you to get there, you have to commit to doing it, because I promise you, it's going to be one of the best things that you do for yourselves. And I would love it if you began it even earlier, if you're probably you're a teenager or in your 20s, because I don't regret the age that I started, or rather I realized that I need to do this. But I would have loved it if I started it in my teens. I would have loved it because the opportunities I missed when I was in my teens, when I was in my 20s, that I would have taken boldly had I started then, had I learned this then. So I would urge you, at whatever age you come across this, begin that journey. Take the step, go research. How do I begin to just self-love myself? How do I begin to self-love? And I can promise you that journey is good. That journey is wonderful. You are going to let go of things that you had carried for so many years. And if it leads you to, I'm going to talk about techniques later on, but if it even leads you to a point where you cry and let it out, you'll be a much better person, much better suited for the journey that is ahead of you. So all the best as you start this. I truly pray the best for you. I truly pray that you begin this, because it's going to light up a whole other world that you are not aware of. All the best and good luck falling in love with yourself. Bye.